And now a conversation with Dr. Ray Blanchard. He is a PhD in psychology, has been a trainer for almost 50 years, and has been a trainer of trainers for almost 40 years. This is someone that has moved the transformational technology forward impressively. If you do not know him, use this opportunity to get close and to learn about someone that can really make a difference in your life. Welcome.
Secret souls.
La salsa secreta. So Ray, how can we move transformation, not the beingness of transformation, but like the impact of transformation forward in the world in a powerful way today?
Great question. That's always a question on my mind ever since I got into this work, because I really bought into that we can change the world. We can transform the world. I bought into that, and I really gave my life to it 100% and still do. And I really think that in order for us to make the impact that, in my mind, that we need to make and we want to make, I think we've got to collaborate more. The world is moving at a really rapid pace in terms of cultural evolution. And I think that if we're going to make the difference that we really want to make, I think that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And if we do the individual work of transformation, we will still make an impact. We'll still make a difference. But I think we can make a larger difference, a more monumental difference, if we learn to work together more and collaborate more. But that takes really living what we teach as transformation, called win-win. And we can get the more points by working together. And we would really have to do that. We would really have to do what we teach people to do, is work together.
Yeah, speaking about our community, our transformational community, why is it so that we're not collaborating as much as we could? I mean, just to be very honest, I feel like in the culture of transformation in Latin America, which is the one I most know, it kind of like feels like more like the centers are separate from each other, trainers are separate from each other. A couple of them might work together, but it's more like it doesn't feel like just now we are a movement together. It feels more like everybody's trying to grab a piece of the pie, and they're worried about, oh, they're gonna take my piece of the pie. It feels more like that. I might be wrong, but that's my experience. And so how can, well, first of all, why is that so? Does that feel like that for you? Why is that so? Does it matter if we know why it's like that or not? I feel like it does matter, because if we're able to know where this comes from, maybe we'll get a level of awareness that will allow us to move into a different direction, acknowledge that that's happening, because I feel like another layer of that is like we're just pretending that we are collaborating, but let's face it, people, we're not collaborating. Okay, once we're at peace with that, okay, who wants to start collaborating? So what's your take on that?
Well, first of all, I don't blame people negatively for doing that, because we are citizens of the world and we live in a transactional world, and people are concerned about making a living. People are concerned about their occupations and being entrepreneurs and building their businesses. And that's just a way of the world, building your own enterprise, building your own business, and building your business in the field of transformation. But you're still building your business. You're still building your own enterprise. And I don't blame people for doing that. That is the way of the world. And I think there's another possibility, though, which is to collaborate for both building your own business and for building the consciousness of the world. And I think the problem is competition. Also, the problem is ego involvement. A lot of people get into transformation for the ego satisfaction, to see themselves as a trainer, or to see themselves as a center owner, or to see themselves as a business owner, and, for their own ego's sake. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm not trying to knock people's ego, but that's just the phenomena. That's just what happens. And they see that the conversation of transformation is idealistic and it's ideal, but they can make a business around that, and it becomes real transactional. And before you know it, they get captured by the transactional nature of it, and they stay separate. But yet there's the transformational experience that individuals have, and then there's the transformational experience available to the world. And in which case, I think collaboration is the way to do that. But we've got to learn collaboration on another level. We know about collaboration, but to actually practice collaboration takes some sacrifice. One of the concepts I work on when I work in business, I had the opportunity recently to be in a business conference, or a business development conference, in which I was a keynote speaker for that. And all of the participants were entrepreneurs and business owners, maybe a few hundred people. And the Secretary of State invited me there along with some other people because they were interested in building business for that area of that particular state. And I needed a way to open my talk with people, so I asked the audience, the business audience, how many of you want a team of champions at your company? And everybody raised their hand. And I told them to talk about what that meant to them, to someone next to them for a few minutes, and they did. And after that few minutes, I said, I have a second question. How many of you want a championship team? And that stopped everybody for a moment. And I had them talk about, what does it mean to have a championship team versus a team of champions? And everybody talked about that, and that began an incredible conversation of what is the distinction between having a team of champions and a championship team. A team of champions, you can have a lot of people who are very good at a lot of things, and they pull in different directions, and they will never be a championship team, like athletes. And you can have another team, they may be champions or might not be individual champions, but they're committed to the team championship, in which they have to sacrifice some of themselves in order for the team to win. So you're sacrificing some of yourself for something larger than yourself. And that has to be a commitment that has to be presented to people, opposed for people, and people have to see that that is meaningful to them and that that's what they want to commit to, as opposed to being individual champions. So I think in this work, we have a lot of individual champions, but we don't have a championship team yet.
Very well said. That's very powerful, and perhaps it's the calling. No, what we need is some perhaps a game that this team can play together, or ourselves to be able to embrace this idea and start collaborating as a team. Yeah, that's kind of like, this is what I'm attempting to do in that direction with these conversations that I'm having, for example, with you. Open up that space.
Well, in order to get that, somebody has to take a stand for that. And somebody has to bring that forward as a possibility in a profound way, in such a way that the other champions could see how they could win at that. Because they don't have an obligation to play that kind of a game.
Yeah.
They have to see it as an opportunity and as a possibility, such that they can still win and maybe even win bigger.
So that, yeah. So are you saying that these champions need to see that playing as a team, they actually need to see that, oh, if I sacrifice this and become part of the team, that way I'll be able to win something that by myself I can't. Is that what's going to move these champions to participating as a team?
I think so. If the team wins, the individuals on the team have to see that they win by having the team win, and by having the team win, they win. And I think they have to see that they have a greater opportunity playing together than they have playing separately. And until somebody can present that to them so that they can buy into that, I don't think that's going to happen. So that's why we need transformational leaders, not just transformational trainers, but we need transformational leaders. And we need someone to take the stand for that and open that as a possibility and enroll people in that possibility such that they can see that the overall win also gives them a bigger personal win.
Fantastic.
So that means that you get to be a great enroller.
Yeah. You heard it correctly. This is a calling. Yeah. Calling you forward to take that stand.
Yeah, it's an
And enroll
enrollment.
others.
It's an enrollment process. Yeah. Back to that again. It's an enrollment process, and one of the other thoughts that I am having right now, and what is the role of a leader? And I often talk about that with business people. What is the role of a leader? And I think the role of a leader is to have that kind of a compelling vision for something like that, so deeply in the heart, so deeply in your being, in your consciousness, that it really lives for you. And to be able to speak from that in such a way that other people will voluntarily want to participate in that with you. And I think that that's what it's going to take, is having somebody feel that so deeply and so personally that they're able to communicate effectively from that and have other people buy into that voluntarily. Because people won't buy into it out of force. They'll buy into it because they choose to.
Yeah, from their hearts. A little bit of transformational history. So you came into the trainings like around 75, and then very shortly after that, you became a trainer, right? You
Right.
Perhaps you were like, because back then, LifeSpring wasn't really big. It had just started, maybe 1 or 2 years.
Right. When I came into it, 75, right around that time, I think there was EST,
Right.
which had started, I think, right around 1972, something like that, a few years before. And then LifeSpring started in 1974. And I started, I think, in 1975 or somewhere around that time. And I was scholarshiped into the training. So the friend of mine that enrolled me had talked to the people that he was around at that center, that here's this guy, Ray, you guys should look at him. So they scholarshiped me into the training. And I'm thankful to it to this day, to this day. But
Who
then to go,
knows, probably you wouldn't have done it.
I probably wouldn't have done it.
Right?
I wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
So I'm really thankful to this day.
That's powerful, because a lot of people, myself included, I've thought at times people have to pay for the training, otherwise they get no value from it. And there you go. It's a great example of.
Well, in my case,
Not
it was
necessarily.
really different. Yeah, not necessarily so. But I think there has to be some kind of commitment to be in the training, to get value.
How did you have the commitment once you
I
were
had
there?
the commitment because I saw what my friend was doing with his life, and I know what we were doing together. And I really wanted to
So the commitment
match up to him. And
came out of that relationship.
yeah,
no?
out of that relationship, and for what we were doing together. So I had a commitment internally, and therefore it worked for me. But I had to pay to go to the next training, and I did. And so
Do you remember how much you paid back then?
I think I paid like $600 or $700 or something like that for the advanced
good,
course.
good. Yeah.
I remember.
That's a point of reference for people out there.
What's so funny is my brother was in the military at the time, officer, and I was just getting out of graduate school and starting to work at my psychology job. I didn't have a lot of money, and my brother was doing well in his business and in the military, and I borrowed the money to go to the advanced course.
Okay.
And I went to the advanced course, and we can get into all the rest of the story later, but funny story. Years after I was in the training business, I was doing a training in Austin, and guess who showed up in the front row?
Your brother.
My brother. I had no idea he was coming to the
Oh, no?
training.
Oh,
I had no
wow.
idea. I didn't enroll him. I don't know if he knew I was going to be the trainer.
Wow.
And he was sitting in the front row, and I was so embarrassed in front of my brother, my older brother, the military guy in the front row of the training. And I tried to avoid him. I didn't want to make eye contact with him. I tried to avoid him because I didn't want to be distracted. And then there was a time where, you ask people who wants to share about this. Of course, my brother would raise his hand. Yeah. And I didn't call on him. I called on somebody else.
Oh, you still avoided him.
I still avoided him. And I kept avoiding him, and he kept raising his hand. And I finally had to call on him. And I said, so why are you here? I pretended he's not my brother. So why are you here? He says, I just want to tell everybody that I'm here. I want to support my little brother. I was so embarrassed. But anyway, he kept every day wanting to share. And the second day, he wanted to share because we had given him homework and come back. And we opened the next day. Who wants to share? Of course, my brother wants to share. And I go, in my brain, I don't want to process him. I don't want to get into anything deep with him. I'll just let him share. So he took the microphone, and then it was silent for a moment, and he burst into tears. It was like amazing. Things had already started to open up for him, and he was so vulnerable, and it altered his life, altered my life. And that's full circle. So he literally gave me the money to become a trainer, to take the next training and become a trainer. And then he was a student in my training. It was a profound full circle.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So in transformation, we all know that center people that work in the centers in the everyday are key, are fundamental to the development and growth of an organization, but there's not really a lot of training for them out there. So we created the Lyceum of Professional Transformation, and we have training that's specifically for centers. We are about to start the next generation, and we've had great results. We have centers that have 2-3x the amount of people in their basic, and we have centers that have increased the upgrade from their basic to the advanced in average 14%. So if you work in a center or you have a center, please go to the link in the description below so that you can book your free discovery call for the next generation of centers in transformation. Just altered your relationship forever.
It altered our relationship forever. But yeah, you asked, but I got off the track a little bit there with that. You asked, what was it like coming in? LifeSpring started in 74.
Yeah, very few trainers.
Very few trainers.
How that work? I'm
There
a
were
little curious of like how were the trainers trained back then?
It's so interesting you asked that because I was in the third level training the LP training. And I was a trainer in training already because I had an interview at LifeSpring after my Part 2 training. And they actually hired me that day and sent me to a training in another city to sit in with the senior trainer, with Randy Revelle.
Okay.
And I sat in Randy Revelle's training after that interview that day for the whole week. And then I went back to my city where I lived and started my leadership training.
Wow. That's fast.
And that's fast.
Yeah.
And I was in the middle of my leadership training when they needed a trainer for an advanced course. And there was me and another junior trainer who were going to co-train that training. And of course, our first thoughts was, where's the manual?
Yeah.
And the senior trainer who came to visit with us that morning before the training started says, there is no manual. Let's just have breakfast together, and I'm gonna talk about the training, and you guys take some notes. We had index cards and pens and pencils. We took notes, and we were freaking out, by the way, but we took notes. And he says, because I'm not going to be leading the training, I've got to leave. And it's going to be the two of you running this training. And there's no manual. You just got your index cards and your notes. But I know you both have had a lot of work in psychology and group dynamics, and I know you're going to do great. And
Bye.
And see you later.
Wow.
And so we actually did the training. And you know what? It was one of the best trainings that I think we ever did, because we had no attachment, no ego. We knew what essentially was supposed to happen, but we didn't know the way it was supposed to happen exactly. We had a general idea, and we really had to bring ourselves to the training. And we did, and some of the things we did, we brought from what we do in Gestalt therapy. We brought some things we knew from group dynamics, and we made it all happen. And some of those things we did actually found their way into our next training.
Really?
And other trainers started to do it too. So actually it became an invention, quite frankly. So it was really powerful.
So that probably is because the way I took the training, it just feels like, oh, the training is like that. You know, it's just like that. You know, I don't know. We don't even think about where it came from. We just think like, it just fell out of the sky, and there it was. So maybe this is what started like building some stuff into it, like the sharing, the gestalt, stuff like that.
Yeah, some of that stuff found its way into the training, but I'm not saying in this conversation that should be the way that everybody should do the training.
Right, yeah.
It just so happened to work at that time, and we became part of the evolution of the training, and eventually created manuals and created processes and sequences that became identifiable as the training. And I think that's the way it evolved. And now I think that's what people learn is a particular sequence. And,
right.
And you're always going to have some people become inventive. But one of the things that I really appreciate about LifeSpring and Landmark and the other centers that I studied with is, yes, they respected the creativity of trainers, but they didn't want it to become an open-ended creativity session. They wanted it to be identifiable, that this is the product that we're selling.
You can replicate.
And you can replicate.
Right.
Because I think these days, there are so many training centers and trainers popping up that are self-declared trainers and self-declared training centers that it becomes such an inventive process that they're calling it transformation. It may or may not be.
Right.
Or they're calling it the Part 2 training. Well, that Part 2 training may or may not be what other people of a reputation call the training. So that's a little bit of the danger to the work.
Yeah, the double edge thing.
That's a double-edged sword.
Right.
But that's also one of the gifts of the work is that we continuously evolve and create and innovate. So it's a little bit of both, and I think you got to be careful about that.
Yeah, I'm going to time travel a little into the 2000s. I believe you started training trainers in the forum for trainers. That's the name of the
Trainer Forum.
Trainer Forum 2007, maybe more or less.
I think it's a little bit
around there.
earlier than there, yeah.
Earlier. So yeah, maybe to the early 2000s. Right. What would you say today is like the key things a trainer must have, or like that the trainer must be trained in to be able to become a trainer?
It's a great question. In my way of thinking in preparing trainers, I think, first of all, they need to have a grounding in the philosophy of transformation. What is transformation? What are the distinctions that make for transformation? And what is it that we're talking about when we talk about transformation? And what are the philosophical components and philosophical tools that make for and constitute transformation? And they need to understand that at one level. And the second level that people need to understand is, who are we as ethical beings? Who are we going to be? What are the ethics of transformation? I think they need to get grounded in that, because that gives transformation an identity or a personality.
So that's going to be like the skeleton, like the structure that holds this?
That's the foundation.
The foundation.
What is transformation? What is the philosophy and the phenomena of transformation? And who are we being? And it's a sacred kind of work. And who are we, and what is our obligation, and what is our liability, and what is it that we're trying to accomplish for people? What is our promise for people, and how will we do it? And the third thing is then to learn the techniques and the structure of transformation, and the methodologies of transformation, and then what are the tools of transformation, and then how do you integrate all of that? And one of the other things that we want to teach people is how to move the energy, how to manage the energy. Most people think that transformation is about information, giving the transformational information. That's a part of it. But
it is,
really,
but you can find that on the internet.
Anywhere.
No
You can find that anywhere. So you're not just an information dispenser. What you're really doing is you're managing the energy and managing the state of being in the room. And there are also techniques to learn about how to manage the energy, even movement in the room, stage movement, ways of using your body, ways of using your articulation, ways of using words, language, and exercises. So you got to integrate all of that. And we want people to learn all those aspects of being a trainer at a high level.
So when you're like in a room, do you feel like the energy in the room is like one whole being, or do you see like the particular energy of every person, or both?
I think it's both. As a trainer, I think you've got to pay attention to all of the aspects of the room. We call it sensory acuity. Okay. You got to have a acute sense of what's happening in the space. With these people over here, those people over there, individuals. So you got to have an acute sense of what's going on in the space. And you have to have an acute sense of the overall energy in the room and the overall context of the room. So you got to be a master of working both the individuals, the individual groupings, and the overall energy in the room. And I think that takes a little bit of time to master that, but you got to know about it in order to master it. If you don't know about it, you don't master it.
It just goes over your head, right?
So you got to know about it, and then you got to learn to master it. All right.
I was just reminded about the super seminar When I came into Transformation, I remember I heard about it. I didn't get to go to one of the super seminars, but then when I was just recently talking to you, you told me that you created the super seminar, and also you produced the movie. What's the name of
The Answer.
The Answer? Yeah, which I'd like to share with people. I don't know if you can either tell us where to find it. I think like everybody should watch this movie. But tell us about the experience of producing the super seminar. What was it? What's the vision behind it? I think like many people have thought about doing something like that. I think it's a great idea. I personally had a similar idea, and I decided not to do it because once I realized the size of the animal, I was like, oh no, wait, retreat. It's insane.
It's an obligation. It's a big commitment.
It's huge. But when you think about the idea, you're like, oh, I'm going to get a couple of trainers together, great people. We're going to, a couple of hundred people, and we're going to do a fantastic event. But it's really way more complicated than just that. So what was your experience in the super seminar? What was the vision of that?
It was a great experience. The super seminar came as a second commitment, actually. Right around the time that the movie The Secret came out, we came out with The Answer. And it wasn't influenced by The Secret in either way. It just happened to be around that same time. And the way that happened is there was a producer in Los Angeles, a movie producer, and it was one of the producers on a big television show. Happened to be in the training that I was doing in Orange County, California. And after the training, he came to me and says that what you're doing and what you guys are doing really ought to be produced. And I said, no. We don't want our transformational work to get ruined by media and all of that. We want it to be pure. But he convinced me to do some CDs and DVDs.
Great, good for him.
And I go, okay, great, I'll do that.
Yeah.
That was my first step. And after did that, about 6 months or a year later, he came to me and said, I have an idea for a movie. And but I need your help. I need to get investment. And we need something like $500,000 or something like that to produce this. And I want to include a lot of trainers, not just you, but I want to include a lot of trainers and have them appear and see what they have to say about different topics in transformation. So we did, and we created that vision, and we were so passionate about it that we thought it would take us 6 months to get the capital and get it, but it took us like a month.
Wow.
And everybody was into it, and we produced it. We traveled around to different cities, shooting different people and different things, and we created the movie. And the next step was, how do we market it? And
because this was what year?
This was 2008, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And
probably no social network back then.
No social
Probably
network
not,
by then. But one of the trainers in the movie, I had trained him because we played baseball together when I was in college, and I also trained him in being a trainer. And he knew Jack Canfield. And because Jack Canfield had come through his training.
Oh, wow.
And become a trainer.
Oh, really? A trainer?
Yeah.
Wow.
So Terry and I
idea.
played ball together, and then I was his trainer.
Okay.
And he worked for LifeSpring for a couple of years. And he left LifeSpring and started working with Insight and created Insight with my other good friend and Sri John Roger. And in that training, Jack Canfield came through the training as a student.
Wow.
And was hired.
Was he already a famous writer?
No, he wasn't.
No. Oh,
no.
Cool.
He was a teacher or something. I don't know what he was doing at that time. But he came through the training, and he was hired to become a trainer. And he was a trainer for Insight for 4 or 5 years. and left and then wrote the book Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Wow.
And it became a famous book.
Yeah, huge.
And so Terry knew Jack very well. So when The Secret came out with Jack and that group, and our movie came out, Terry says, I should put you and Jack together, and maybe he can tell you something about how to produce and market the movie. And Jack invited me to Santa Barbara, and I went up to Santa Barbara, and we talked and had a great time. And out of that conversation, I wanted to have some advice on marketing. So my producer and I went to do that. And Jack wanted to know something about what I was doing because he knew the kind of training I was doing because it was the grandfather of the training that he was doing at Insight. So he was looking for some new material, and I gave him a couple exercises that I had created, and we became kind of friends and connected.
Great.
And he says, I've got this group called the Transformational Leadership Council of thinkers around the world and transformation. Why don't you consider joining? And so he invited me to join the Transformational Leadership Group, and I did back in 2008. And I had access then to all of these trainers,
Right.
and all these great world thinkers.
Yeah, I was checking out the TLC webpage just recently. Great people in there.
Great people. So I have access to all these people. And,
fantastic.
And now I'm on the board of directors of it. So I've been in it since then. But I had access to all these people like, John Gray and Marion Williamson.
So Jim Quick is in
Jim
there.
Quick and Jack Campbell, all these
Vishen
people.
Lakiani was in there too.
Vishen Lakiani, he's there. And all these people I had access to. Stephen Covey Jr. was there. And I said, my goodness, I've got this movie. I have access to all these people. And I want to market the movie. The best way to market the movie is to put on an event and have all these people speak, and then I can market the movie at the event.
Okay. Okay.
So
we've been back. We've been back into the event. Yeah.
So that's how that came about. And so I had maybe 15 speakers at a 3-day event. And I put a theme together, and I had each one of them take an hour or 2 hours to present, and there you go. And
but now you have to market the event.
What's that?
Now you had to market the event.
Then I had to market the event. That's exactly right. And so now, how do I market the event? And I didn't have internet at the level that it is now, and so I had to hire a public relations manager, and we used the following of all the people who are on the marquee who are speaking, and to talk to their people, and to invite people. And then I had a PR person who helped with a lot of it, and that's how we marketed the event. And then we ended up doing it maybe 5 or 6 years, but it was a lot of work.
It is.
And of course, you put together big events like this, so it's a lot of work, and putting the capital together, putting the marketing together, putting the
logistics,
structure, the logistics, and all the team of people to do it, and it's a lot of work. And at first, I was doing it on my own, and then after that, I started developing a team to help do it, but you got to manage the team, so it's a lot of work. But it was totally worth it. It has opened up so many doors for me and other people that I can't even thank all these people and thank the experience enough. It was quite an experience. But let me say one thing. But that experience was a manifestation of what I was thinking, what if we could collaborate? That was a manifestation of collaboration. Now, what will be needed is to hold that together and to let people see how events like that could benefit them and benefit the audience, and managing that. So maybe I can talk to you and put you up to it.
Yeah. That's powerful. I was going to precisely ask you that, like, how do you see right now the future of centers, trainers, transformation happening? Like, where do you see it's going?
That's a great question. The world is dictating some of that.
Yeah, right.
I think
Yeah,
the
agree.
conditions of the world.
For example, like in the pandemic, like that was a
Yes.
big, like, okay, you guys have a plan, but take this.
Take
But
that.
yeah,
You know.
I see that.
And then,
Game changer.
yeah, that was a game changer. And all of the conflicts around the world is a game changer. It's really begging us to come to the rescue to some degree. And we have the tools, we have work that we can provide, and the world needs it. And if we could match the need with all of what we have to offer, I think we could be a solution to some degree. But it takes organizing that and managing it. So I think the future of transformation will depend on our ability to have a concept and the ability to manage something like that and pull that together. And if we do, I think the future of transformation is rich and the future of transformation has longevity. But if we don't do that, I think the splintering and individuation of transformation will not have it go any further than what it is. We will just have a lot of different centers doing as best they can, and many of them will start and fail, and there might be a few that will flourish. But I don't think the future for it will be as rich as if we were to collaborate. And I'm not sure that everybody will collaborate with it, but we need to have enough people to collaborate with it to create momentum. And I think if we do that, the future is very, very rich because people are in an evolution. And I think we're in a consciousness evolution, a consciousness wave, if you, another way to say it.
Like in this particular
At
moment
this
in time,
particular
right?
moment in
Okay.
time. And I think there's a yearning for it. Even though people might not know how to articulate that yearning, I think there's a yearning for it. And I think the world is showing us that there's a yearning and a need for it. And if we do what it takes to pull it all together, I think the future of it is really, really very, very good.
Yeah, it's super exciting. As I hear you speak, it's like we are in a moment. I see it the same way, in that sense. Like it's our moment to come together, or like drift off into, just like small things here and there happening, and a couple that jump up. But it's a good moment to move into a paradigm of collaboration.
You know, a friend of mine has wrote a new book, or one of our TLC, the Transformation Leadership Council members, has a incredible organization in networking. And he is one of the biggest network players around the world. Ivan Meisner, his organization called BNI, Business Network International. And he's written a new book. It's called The Third Paradigm. And the focus of it is collaboration. And the point is we've moved from competition to cooperation, and now we need to move from cooperation to collaboration. And I think that's right on. And he and I didn't talk about this in his writing the book and in my thinking, but it just so happens that we both think along the same lines about that. And I really do think that this is the new wave, if you will, of transformation is collaboration.
What happens after a while? I don't know if that's your experience, but I get into the trainings and I have a profound experience. But then after you're in the trainings and sharing the trainings for a while, it becomes the doing of the. You fall easily into just doing transformation.
Right.
Would you say so? Like,
I
is
think
that like your
so.
experience? And if so, how do you keep yourself grounded in what the being of transformation is?
I think it's so easy to fall into the trap of going on automatic and just doing a process and going through the motions and calling that transformation. And people who observe that, they think that that's what they're to do too. It's just to go through the motions and produce an exercise or produce an experience. But I think there's a whole nother facet of this. It's called where are you coming from? Who are you being? And what are your own practices? What are your own preparation in being there for the people? And are you really coming from a place that's sacred for you truly? And are you being present to that truly? And are you getting that across to people? Are people picking that up and being influenced from that? Or are people just going through a process of going through the motions? And that's one is the doing of transformation. The other is being transformation. And I think they go together. But if you get so into the habit of just doing transformation, I think something gets lost.
Yeah, well, but especially because the doing of transformation also works. I mean, you can get extraordinary results by doing transformation. So that's kind of like tricky, no?
Yeah, you can get a result, but what result are you getting is the question. You can teach people anything and get a result. You can have someone who hasn't a clue about the essence of transformation run a process and get people to have an experience. But what is the quality of the experience is the question, and where is it really coming from? Where is it grounded? And what's the depth that the trainer or the facilitator is coming from? Because that influences the quality of the recipient's experience.
So when you're training trainers, what do you think helps you train them in that depth?
Well, first of all, I call it my training is a trainer forum. So
Okay.
we have a forum where we talk about a lot of things and make a lot of distinctions. But in doing so, we're really helping each other get into a deeper experience, a deeper understanding of the experience, and get into a particular set of practices. So for me, for instance, when I'm going to do a training, I've been doing trainings for so long, I can do a training just blindfolded without
Right.
even thinking about it, just on automatic. But that doesn't work for me personally. So for me personally, my practice is I start days before the training. And I get into a state of mind, a state of being, and ask myself really personal questions about who am I going to be for people? Not just what am I going to do, but who am I going to be for people in the whole process? And who am I going to be in listening to them? So I think I get into that. And I do a lot of practices of meditation. I do a lot of rehearsals. And because I have such an honor for the work and what we're doing. And I wouldn't dare step in front of a group of people without doing that and going into a depth of what it really means to me and what it would mean to them, and being really prepared at a spiritual level rather than just a doing level.
Yeah, now that you mentioned the spirituality of transformation, kind of like when I first did the trainings, and I still I feel like it is that way. I think like transformation is a good gateway into the expansion of your awareness. So most of the people that come into a training, probably I would say, yeah, most have never done any type of training before. So this is a great first movement into your personal growth, transformation, increasing your awareness. So I'm not really sure if transformation could be called spiritual, or this is just like the beginning and pointing into that direction, or is transformational spiritual? What would you say?
Spiritual means different things to different people.
Right. Yeah.
And for some people, based on where they're coming from, it's their spiritual journey. And it's very spiritual for them. And they take it seriously, and it's a sacred process. And for other people, they're not oriented towards the sacred. They're not oriented towards spirituality. And so for them, it doesn't have a spiritual ring to it or component to it. It's more of a utility for them. It's like, how does it make me better at this? How does it make me better at that? How does it make me better in my relationships? How does it make me better at being more committed and getting results in my life? And what shift do I need to make to be able to do that? So it doesn't have a spiritual overtone for them, but for others it does. So spiritual means different things to different people. But I think you got to conduct transformation in such a way that whatever it means to that particular person, they get to accomplish that for themselves.
Oh, I can, like, whatever you come. But also, when I come into the training, I'm coming into the training thinking I want something, but then as the training goes on, I realize I want something different. Just because, like in my experience, when I came into the basic, I was like there for a reason, and then by the end of the basic, I felt like what was possible expanded, and so now what I wanted from the training was something different.
Me too. I went into the training thinking I wanted one thing. I came out something else. I went into the training being a psychologist and a therapist and thinking I was going to be better at that. I came out of the training, I gave that away and went into training other people in this work. So I think everybody is in a process of self-evolution.
Okay.
And I think the training comes along in one's life at the perfect time for your own evolution. So when you come into the training, you're already in a process of evolution. And in your gut, in your heart, you just want to be the very best person you can be at that stage of your life. And so when you come into the training, you're in a process of evolution or a process of transformation already. So the training just accelerates that process and maybe takes you to the next step of your own personal evolution. And for some people, that's giving up psychology and becoming a trainer. And for somebody, it's giving up a relationship and getting into another relationship because they find a different depth to themselves and they discover something more meaningful in life and than what they had before. So I think everybody is different.
What is your particular moment right now regarding your spiritual relationship with yourself and with the training? Where do you feel you are right now?
That's a great question. I'm at I guess the legacy stage of my life.
Okay.
Giving the training and giving everything away to people so that they can have this magnificent journey. This work has been such a gift and such a privilege to me. I've had such a great ride at this, and I will get emotional thinking about it if I get too into it. But I've had a great ride. It has really altered my life so phenomenally. And I want to have other people have such an experience for themselves if this is what they want to do. So my job now is to give them the best opportunity to do that if this is what they want to do. So I'm in that stage of my life now. And I'm also at that stage of my life where mortality and end of life and beginning of life are questions. And what do I want to do with the rest of my life? How long will I have to do this? And what legacy will I leave? And what will I leave for my family and other people? And what mark will I leave on the world? So I'm really in a different kind of a question now than I was, say, 30 years ago or 40 years ago. So my questions with myself are match the stage of evolution that I'm in. So that's where I'm at now. It's more the legacy stage of my life.
And you feel like, is there something in particular that has lead you towards that, or it's like just like the moment in your life, just the running of time itself has taken you to that point?
I think it's a little of both. I think as you grow and mature and get older and time goes by, you created so many memories and you want to create more memories and you start thinking about time. And the world changes. And are you adapting to the world, the way the world is right now? Or are you in the question of, I hate that the world changed and it should be the way it used to be? Or are you up to shifting with the world the way the world shifts? And that in and of itself brings a lot of questions. But I think the other side of it is that you have a lot of life experiences in 40, 50 years, a lot of births, a lot of deaths, and a lot of situations, a lot of circumstances that you deal with that make you start looking at life differently with more depth and what is the meaning of life. And I think that happens over time. And I think as you get older, it's inevitable.
And I feel like nowadays plant medicines are getting way more popular, like psilocybin. We're starting to understand way better what's possible with that. Ayahuasca as well. Have you had any experiences with plant medicines?
Now, do you want me to get honest with you about
Please,
all of this?
please.
Right.
Please, I feel like it's powerful to share this.
Yeah, well, in the early days of my college life and right after, it was popular to get into psychedelics and
like LSD back then,
LSD, psilocybin, and other things.
Okay.
And I tried all of that at the time, and I had a number of different experiences, or we call them trips at that time.
Yeah, still.
And I think it really opened my eyes to a way of seeing the world. And I learned a lot out of it. But then after a period of time, that went away. I had no interest in doing that, and my life became different, and my exploration of what the meaning of life is and who I am took a different turn. I went more into meditations and yoga and other things that I was exploring. And now, full circle, over the last few years, a number of my friends in life and in the work have been going to different places where they're trying ayahuasca and other kinds of experiences. And they've invited me, and I have no interest in it at this point in time, but I do respect it. And, times change, and it's more, I guess, accessible and more okay to do now than it was maybe 20 years ago.
It's probably also like transformation. I mean, when you started in transformation, you correct me, but I don't feel like the culture was like, oh, transformation, sure, come on in, tell us all about it. I feel like there was more like, what are these people talking about?
Yeah, when I first got into it, my family and friends, they're like, what are you doing? Are you in a cult? That's what they were worried
You're
about.
supposed to be a PhD in psychology, for Christ's sake. What are you doing?
Like, what are you doing? What do you mean you gave that up? You spent 19, 20 years getting here, and now you gave that up? What are you doing? Well, I think life changes for people, as I said. And back then, it was so new on the horizon. And also back then...
Sorry, this is just like 1975 when you did the trainings, no?
1975, right around that time.
More or less.
And back then, there was a movement of cult leaders. And there was a lot of suspicion about being in a cult. And honestly, when I first went to my first guest event, It wasn't with LifeSpring. I think it was to see Werner Erhard.
Oh, cool.
I was studying at Esalen Institute back then with Michael Murphy and studying the evolution of consciousness with Michael Murphy and George Leonard. And I spent time at Esalen. And I was learning some stuff from Michael Murphy because he had just been in India with Sri Aurobindo. And I was learning some of the evolution of consciousness work from Michael Murphy, Sri Aurobindo's work. And Michael turned me and another friend of mine on to Werner Erhard to go to see a guest event. Well, when I walked in and I saw maybe a few hundred people, and I looked at their eyes, and their eyes were bright and wide open, and I thought they must be on drugs. They must be in a cult, and they were all so keen on having eye contact, and I wasn't as keen on that at the time, and I regarded it as suspicious, and I thought it was the cult, and I drew back. In fact, they took a little bit of a break in midstream of the guest event, and my friend had already left, and I left at halftime, and we went to the bar. So we're out of here. We're not gonna be bothered with this. But that was my first experience. But a few months later, that same friend of mine that walked out had gone to another city and taken a training, and he came by my house a few days later, and immediately I could tell something was different about him. And I asked him, John, what's different about you? What's going on? And he says, I just did this training, and you've got to do it. Well, I said, if you did it, I'll do it. Because I had enrolled him to go to Esalen with me, and now he enrolled me to go to the training. And of course, I did. I trusted him, and I did. And I thought the work that we were doing at Esalen and the work that we were doing in consciousness and small group development and group dynamics was the height of everything. But after I went into the training, I thought, oh my God, I thought I knew everything, but now I feel like maybe I know nothing.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because you're doing that work at Esalen, right? And kind of like what you see happening in that guest event when you get there is the result of the Esalen work, if it worked. But we're kind of like a little suspicious that it actually works when we see it, you know, like you said, those bright eyes. I see those people with those bright eyes, and then you're like a little suspicious about it. Not you personally. I can see myself being suspicious about, like, why are these people like so happy, and why are their eyes so bright? But that's kind of like, oh, like, I think in your heart, like, what you wanted. But now that it's there, sometimes we're like, oh, I have to be suspicious.
I didn't know I wanted it.
Okay.
That's the point. I didn't know I wanted that. It opened up to me as I was in the training. Because I thought there were intellectual academic work and the study of consciousness academically. And then I thought there was this work of meditation, yoga, and learning Eastern philosophy. I thought that was another level of consciousness work. And it was. And learning about that and participating in that and going through Gestalt groups and group dynamics. That was a whole nother body of work and deep learning. But when I went into the training, that was a third level of work. And some of it was touching upon the evolution of consciousness work, because there was a flavor of Eastern philosophy in the training at that time. And there was also a lot of the group dynamics work blended into it. And I think the combination of that became a whole new experience. And it opened my consciousness, opened my awareness at a completely new level. Maybe I was primed for it, I don't know. But I didn't know that I was looking for that. And it actually caught me by surprise
I was thinking that,
while
yeah.
I was in the process of it. Because when I first went into the training, I sat there with my arms folded, like, who are these people and what are they going to teach me? And they don't know as much as we know in psychology, and I've been studying consciousness work. So who are they? So I sort of dismissed them and was skeptical. And by 2 days, people started sharing things in the training. And I thought, my God, these people are opening up so deeply. And how did they start opening up that quickly? And I'm not. And by the third or fourth day, I'm starting to open up too, like they are. So it caught me by surprise. And I think the process is magical in that way, is that it's a gradual opening process of what you become aware of. And before you know it, you're going into your deeper experiences.
Right.
And before you know it,
You're a trainer.
you're a trainer. You're giving up. You're giving up your career and starting to do that.
Yeah, so maybe to bring it around to almost closing this great episode, and leaning out again into collaboration, because it's something that I myself, I think, like, that's my main distinction, if I were to call it anything right now. I was reminded by Ernest, who's supporting us right now with the podcast, on how I got to be here with you today, because this had, I think, a big part of manifestation, because we happened to be a car drive away from each other and we didn't know it. And so a week ago, I was down the path of a rabbit hole on the internet. You know, when you go from one page to another, and then you suddenly are like in the middle of, you don't know where, but you're finding stuff. And I found the TLC webpage, and I found you there. And I've known about you probably the year that I came into Transformation, because some of your trainers that were in your trainer forum came to the Trainer Academy with us, the Ortiz brothers, who I deeply appreciate, and many others, probably Diana Miranda too, and they came in and they shared about the forum with you and Betty, and I've like followed your career since then, not very closely, but I do want to create relationship and collaborate with people that I see have a great impact and can really support us and are willing to support us, kind of like this next generation, if you will, to continue the work and to expand it. So I found your page, and I found that you had and I appreciate that you had that, because you had like a link to have like a 10-minute discovery call with Ray. And I was like, oh, this is my shot right here. I'm gonna
I'm
book
glad
it.
I have it now.
Yes,
Because I got you.
Yes. I thought it was like, oh, great. And it's also what we were just saying, like, sometimes we do our work and we don't really know how far it reaches. And the other day, I don't remember where I saw this, but it said something like, the stuff that you've shared, that you've taught, that you've put out there, there's people today that are doing stuff in their lives based on what they saw, heard there. And I was like, wow, that's very, very powerful. So yeah, there you go. That link was there, and I booked it, and we were able to have this conversation, and we are here now. And I appreciate that you did that. And of course, I appreciate all the work you've done. I was inspired to hear about like the stuff that I had no idea that you've created in Transformation, but that is very, very inspiring. So I want to thank you for that, and kind of like the idea of this podcast is also that, no, like that we are able to reach. Sometimes, you see, you were only a click away,
All right.
a click away from having a powerful conversation, and really, sometimes we think it's way harder or more complicated than it actually is.
I agree. And, this whole thing about transformation and collaboration, I'm of the opinion that we never know what is going to be the impact of any action we take or anything we do, and who's going to be influenced by it. I think we just got to keep doing what we do from our heart, from our calling, and give it to God, so to speak, and keep on doing what we do. I think there are no accidents. And I also think that we could not do it alone. I could not do alone what I do. There are times in your life, at least in my life, to be more transparent, that I got to this place where I lost touch or track of the impact I was making. I was so into doing what I was doing, I didn't have a sense of the impact, and I didn't even consider the impact. And then that led to another place called, what am I doing? And how do I get my message out? And I didn't know how to do that. And I didn't know where to go. And different people started to come into my life and help me with social media, help me with this and help me with that. And that became part of my team. And the same as the way you came into my life, is that who knows where this will go. But I'm of the opinion that it's no accident that you're in my life right now and I'm in your life right now. And I'm not attached to what it has to be, but I have the sense that there's something is going to happen out of it, and there's a reason for you to be in my life, and there's a reason for me to be in yours. So I'm really grateful to all of the things that happened that brought you here and brought me here with you. And I could never have planned that. But I needed to just listen to the voice and listen to the universe and go and say yes. And just say yes and trust the process. Because in the back of my mind, I was wondering, what's my next step? What am I going to do now? And how do I do that? And I could spend hours in the rabbit hole of wondering about that and worrying about it. And there comes a point in time where you stop worrying about it. You just go, I'm just going to go with what shows up. And I trust the universe is going to provide something that will show up. But I need to just be alert and listen to it and say yes if it feels right. And this came to me and on a few days ago, and it felt right. And here we are.
It does, yeah. Thank you, Ray. Thank you.
Yeah, and I really appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the courage that you've displayed. And I don't know how you started working with our friend John and other people.
Not my
I don't know
friend.
exactly how it all started, but one way or the other, you found yourself doing it and taking it to heart, and you wanted to take it further, and it resonated with your spirit, resonated with who you were and what you thought your purpose was in life and what you wanted to do. And you spent all these years doing that, and now you're doing this. And who would have ever thought that you and I would be sitting here in San Antonio, of all places, because I'm not originally from San Antonio,
Yeah.
and you're not either. And who would have ever thought that we'd be here together doing this and talking to each other and talking to the world about what's possible for all of us. And who knows who's out there right now who's going to be a part of this and part of your life, and who this is going to impact and who's going to somehow impact us. I think that's kind of the way it all works.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I'm gonna invite anyone that's inspired or moved or wants to share anything with us to share it in the comments, because that's what it's about. We want to be able to have these conversations, open them up. So let us hear you in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I just say, keep on doing it. And if something moves you to do it, keep doing it. And the universe will tell you what to do next. And I'm trusting that. And that's where I'm at in my life right now. And I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for doing this. This is great. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, thank you for being open to it. You're like, let's do it. So follow your heart. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome. Okay, so make sure you check out rayblanchard.com so you can stay updated with what Ray is up to, learn more about him, and, like me, book a call, a discovery call.
Secret Souls. La salsa secreta.